Hello.
Hi.
How are you? Today we have Nicola Scott. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
I feel like I'm left. I'm going to wave too. I just want to be part of this group.
Doing the Kermit.
So the first
Yay!
the first silly question we have for you, because they all tend to be silly, is how come you're not upside down?
Oh, I don't know that I've got a terribly clever answer for that. Maybe I am upside down and I've just got really stiff hair.
Oh,
We should explain that you're in Australia right now.
I am in Australia right now. So you guys are nighttime on Thursday and I'm currently morning time on Friday.
yes.
Wow.
Coffee
As
in
as we
Australia.
mentioned
And
before.
it's also, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say you're living in the future. So
We're living in the future, yes. And it's also winter. We just started winter, hence my layers of wool.
Oh.
I
So-
also have a blanket on my lap.
So you're slightly a better looking version than Marty McFly.
Slightly.
Yeah, because he's pretty. I like me and Marty
Michael
McFly.
J. Fox was pretty cute.
no, he just knows a guy named Marty McFly. It has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
nothing
okay.
to do with
It's
it.
just like a random. It's like one of his fans. Hey, I'm Marty.
Nice one.
Yeah, and you don't ever have to worry about having clever answers for us. None of our questions are clever. So
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm not terribly clever either. So we're good.
So how are you? First of all, now we got a silly question out of the way. How are you?
Yeah. Time to the serious questions. Well, I'm fine. All things considered, we're actually sort of weathering all of this reasonably well. You know, Australia is doing an all right job. And sort of I'm lucky enough to have had work continue through the pandemic and generally fine, just very heightened.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that don't know, Nicola is a super talented artist. She's done some of my favorite books of the past. She worked on Birds of Prey and Secret Six with one of my favorite characters or versions of Ragdoll and
Oh yeah,
Cat,
he was fun.
which I love. But how did you get started? What did you do to become an artist?
I came into comics kind of through the back door.
They're doors? I didn't even know there were doors.
Oh yeah, you have to find the secret doors. I didn't really sort of know much about comics as I was growing up. They weren't really around in Australia in a significant way. We had the Phantom, which was a big deal here. You know, the guy in the purple suit with the guns.
Yeah.
Billy Zane. Yeah, we had that here. And there
was he
were
was he purple there?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because
we've got the purple one.
Usually, I was gonna say, and we do too. But like in Italy, he's red, and Norway, he's yellow. Like it depends on the colors for that particular newspaper at the time. It's really weird.
And it's something to do also with the license of the character. Like he's licensed to different countries all over the world, and every country gets like a different color. Like Rainbow Batman. It's amazing. But yeah, so we had the Phantom here, which wasn't really my speed when I was little. And I would see the odd comic, but they would more likely be like Thor or the Hulk and drawn by sort of Jack Kirby or Jack Kirby style art, which, you know, to little me just was a bit scary. It was sort of not terribly cute and pretty. But I got my pretty from Linda Carter, the TV series, and I got my pretty from Adam West and Julie Newmar, and I got my pretty from Christopher Reeve. And
I met him once.
So,
actually.
you know, you did, oh, lucky you. Yeah, so they were, it was the film and TV shows that were kind of my entry point for superheroes. And Wonder Woman was kind of the first superhero I ever saw, and she had an enormous impact on me. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 when the TV show started playing in Australia, and I just never grew out of it. And I used to draw her and them all the time, and it was sort of seeing them all together on the Super Friends, that sort of let me know that they knew each other, these characters that I had seen in live action. And that sort of became my interest and my go-to, and I would draw them all the time. And I never quite grew out of it, even when I hit high school and I just wasn't really into cartoons so much anymore. Started talking about boys and makeup and all that kind of bullshit. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I'm Australian.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
And but I would continue to draw them all the time. And it wasn't really until I was in my late 20s that I was having a bit of a career crisis, trying to work out what I was going to do, that I sort of started really thinking about what I'm capable of doing and what interests me. And one morning, instead of sort of working out different ways that people make a living out of being able to draw, because being able to draw was something I could do, and none of those ways really appealing to me at all, I sort of changed the question around in my head. And instead of it being, what can I do to make a living drawing, I posed the question to myself, what do I want to draw that I'd be happy to draw all day, every day, because that's what a job is. And straight away in my head, I thought, oh man, I wish I could just get paid to draw Wonder Woman, because I always draw Wonder Woman. And that was almost immediately followed by, oh my God, hang on, that's a real job that exists, because she's in a comic book. She comes from comic books, and somewhere in the world, someone is drawing her right now. That's their job. I want that job. And that was kind of the beginning for me. It was a 100% pure, Oprah style light bulb moment. And that was it. I just sort of turned on a dime, from being completely aimless and having no idea what I was going to do to being 100% certain I did know what I was going to do within about 30 seconds. 20 minutes later, I was in a comic book store, and I'd never really been into comic book stores with any regularity before. Occasionally I'd walk into one and walk straight back out again, because it would be like, I don't understand what's happening in here. This culture is a bit too overwhelming. But, they've got superheroes in there, so I'd sort of look from the outside. But this time I was just like, no, bugger it. I need to know what this is all about. And so I went in and I just started buying lots of comics and chatting to the guy behind the counter, who is now one of my best friends. And he was sort of my first guide. He himself now is a huge illustrator for kids' books around the world. And he sort of pointed me in the right direction and started sort of talking about portfolios. And he gave me Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, and told me to go to conventions with my folio and, all that kind of stuff that just sort of got the cogs turning and gave me the sort of foundational information. And from there, I just kind of pursued it with the goal of working at DC Comics and getting to work on Wonder Woman eventually.
Wow. How does that work with you wanting to do that, thinking and knowing that the odds are so slim that that'll happen, to actually walking the red carpet of the Wonder Woman movie with the director Patty Jenkins and the star of the movie and all that?
Yeah, right. Well, I think certainly there is a certain element of arrogance to my attitude that I would make it happen.
Isn't that with all artists though, don't you think? I mean, we all kind of have that little bit of arrogance to do what we do.
Yeah, look, I think on one shoulder we have that sort of arrogance and that ego, and on the other shoulder we have loads of self-doubt.
Yeah, complete failure. It's going to happen at any second.
100%. Yeah, everything I'm drawing is total shit. And then,
Right.
I'll look back on it in a year and go, oh, that's really good. What was I on about? But I think because this had come to me, I think I was like 28 when I decided that this is what I was going to do. And I think just because I was a little bit older and I knew I was approaching it with absolutely no idea, it meant that I didn't have this whole sort of history of comics emotionally meaning a lot to me, because the characters did, but the comics themselves didn't. Comics were just an entirely new thing for me. So I could just learn and understand that I didn't know anything. I just had to face the facts. This was sort of very late 90s, maybe 99 and 2000, I think, was when I made this decision. And I just sort of resigned myself to being, okay, I'm going to be the dumb blonde in the room. I'm going to not know anything. It was quite a few years later that I sort of found out about gatekeeper, culture and all that kind of garbage. And if I had been aware of that before I had jumped in, I might have been a little more cautious. But because I didn't know any of that, and I did know that I didn't know anything, I just sort of barged in with, I don't know what I'm talking about, so someone fill me in. And I would ask the really dumb questions. But I had a sort of certain sincerity and determination that I think it sort of, people either dismiss me straight away as, who is this annoying person? Or they would just sort of be a little, eventually, hopefully, won over by the fact that I was serious about wanting to understand and learn. And along the way, I got some really good advice and some really great help. And it was only sort of like from that moment of making that decision to having a monthly job at DC Comics took me 4 years. And I see that sort of 4 years as a, pretty hardcore apprenticeship. I was working professionally during that time. I think it was probably about 18 months before I got my first sort of proper professional job. It was only about like a month before I got my first job in Australia, but there was only like one job to get at the time. And I was just sort of equal balance of arrogance and ignorance and determination as I barreled my way through to getting what I wanted.
That's awesome.
Do you remember what was the first comic you drew, the first one that was published?
Well, the first comic that I drew that was published, it was just some covers. It was the first job that I got. The first convention that I went to was here in Australia. It was in Sydney, and it was just little. There was like maybe 150 people. And at the time, there was one comic publisher here called Phosphorescent Comics, and they had a couple of sort of young writers who, were pretty cool and doing this interesting story. And I got a job because my first portfolio was just paintings of Wonder Woman with a couple of Batman and a couple of Superman. They were paintings, and so they said, do you want a job doing covers? And I think I got paid $250 to do a cover. And I did 2 or 3 covers for them. And almost immediately upon getting that job, it was clear to me that, okay, this is the only job I can get in Australia. I'm going to have to go overseas if I want to continue to get work, especially if I want to turn this into a living, which meant the UK or the US. And while I could live in the UK, the US seemed to be where all the superheroes were that I knew. And so the American market was kind of what I was focusing on. But that first comic, that was distributed by Diamond. So, I can remember being in New York and being at St. Mark's Comics and seeing that cover and going, oh my God, there's something that I drew in a comic book store in New York City. That's amazing.
That's awesome. Because you came in so late, I'm curious to know who your art influence was. Who's the artist that you look up to, besides me, of course?
Of course. Well, probably most significantly would be my mum, because she was an artist and she taught me how to paint and she taught me how to draw. And she was sort of one of those very naturally creative, not trained, like she sort of did a fine arts degree when I was in my late teens and early 20s. But up until that point, she was generally self-taught. And she was just incredibly talented. And she and I shared quite a lot of similar sort of artistic interests. It might be that, a lot of my interests were shaped by hers. And I would just sort of stamp superhero imagery on top of everything. But she's probably the person that I'm constantly trying to impress. And my grandmother was an artist. She was sort of like a mid-century modern artist. She's got some really sort of beautiful abstract stuff. That's always appealed to me. But when it comes to comic book stuff, I think probably the first things that really hit a real note with me were obviously George Perez. When I saw his art, I didn't quite realize that that's what comic art could be like. I was so used to what I had been aware of from the very few comics that I had seen growing up, which were sort of, quite bold, masculine, that sort of Jack Kirby style, sort of very blocky. And George's art was sort of quite pretty and beautiful, and I didn't know that comics could be pretty. And so that really appealed to me. Adam Hughes was sort of just starting to become a big deal. When I saw his art, and his line work just really spoke to me. It was sort of very, had some realism, but was also quite separate from realism. His lines were all perfect, but sometimes he'd have quite flat colors to fill them in. I always thought his art was really beautiful, still do. They were probably the two artists that really sort of made an impact on me as I started to become familiar with comic book art.
Very cool. You should check out the interview we did with Adam. He was the last video we did.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's weird. He talked about you for like 20 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
He did not.
No, he didn't. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Ooh. That'd be alarming.
Or awesome.
Or really awesome.
That's true. It's a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I thought Franco was going to ask another.
Oh, no. Yeah, go for it, Mark.
No, I'm not doing it. I don't have any questions. I'm done. She answered all my questions.
She answered all your questions.
We appreciate your time. Shut it down.
Yeah, sorry, I do talk a lot.
No,
great.
Once you get me started, I just waffle on.
That's awesome. we have zero problem with that.
Okay, so how about this one? You're stuck on an island, much like you are right now. And, and all your needs are taken care of: food, water, all that stuff.
So I'm at a resort.
What two things? What two things do you bring with you to survive?
Oh, what two things do I bring with me to survive? My iPad, because I am surgically attached to my iPad, and my cat.
How are you going to feed your cat with your iPad?
Well, I thought all of our needs were taken care of.
Well, yours, yeah, but I guess the cats, you'd feed them your food. Okay, all right, that works for me.
Is the cat jealous of the iPad?
No, maybe my husband is a little put out by my iPad. And the fact that he's not coming to the island.
Ah, yeah, that's upsetting.
Well, Franco could amend that question. He just chooses not to.
Yeah, well, your husband can go. But what's the favorite thing that you've drawn in your years of comics? Because you've worked for a couple of different companies, but I mentioned my favorite character and the Secret Six book that you did. I'm a big fan of that. But what about yours? What thing did you like to do, or character Wonder Woman? But what piece did you like, or what issue did you like?
Right. Oof. Look, Secret Six has always held a really important place in my heart because it was a lot of fun. It was kind of, by the time I was drawing that book, I think I'd been at DC for a couple of years. And so I was still kind of new. And because it was very much a fringe book, we were a little bit under the radar. And for the first 3 issues, I think we had 5 different editors, because it was sort of so bottom of the list of priorities. We got bumped around between editors quite a lot at the beginning. And so because of that, no one was really paying that much attention. And so Gail and I kind of really got to do what we wanted, and have a lot of fun being naughty in our little corner. And I think there was some real joy to the fact that she and I sort of were quite in sync. We've both got a similar sense of humor. Gail is possibly a little more what's the word? Maybe a little more delicate than I am. There's a difference between an Australian and an American sense of humor, but I think as close together as we could be, we were there. And so, she would write this hilarious dialogue, and I would just be looking for visual gags to be putting in and seeing what we could get away with. So that was a lot of fun. There was a scene, I think she just posted it on Twitter, or someone posted it at us on Twitter. It was a scene between Scandal Savage and Bane, as he's sort of detoxing from the venom that was and still is a favorite scene of mine, that I've got to draw. What else? There's some really fun stuff in Earth 2. We did an arc that was in the Tower of Fate. Yeah. And in one issue, I think I did 2 double-page spreads looking up or through this very Escher-esque, Earth 2 version of the Tower of Fate, where I was trying to take all these sort of different ancient types of architecture and sort of Escher them together with no sort of sense of gravity. And they were entirely daunting but incredibly satisfying to do. And the end result was a thrill. Like, when I look back at it now, it is one of those things that I look back on now and just go, how did I do that? And not go crazy, especially on a monthly title book. Yeah. What the hell was I doing with my life that I was able to do that?
That's awesome.
And then, of course, finally getting to draw Wonder Woman was a really big deal for me, because every writer that I worked with kind of knew that she was my reason for living. And there were a couple of times during my sort of exclusive era at DC where I was offered the Wonder Woman book, but either the timing was wrong or the project wasn't quite right for me or whatever. And I sort of had found myself being offered my dream job and turning it down.
Wow.
Which wasn't really something that I ever expected I would do. But, when you get so close and you're still building your relationship with the company and you're still building your relationship with the audience, I didn't want my opportunity on my favorite character to be a version of the character that isn't my preferred version of the character. So there were a couple of times when I said no. But then to sort of all of a sudden have the opportunity to have every wish list box ticked, by being able to do it with Greg Rucka, who I had known by the time he and I did Rebirth. Greg and I had known each other for about 10 years, and we had bonded over Wonder Woman, and not a conversation with us goes by without us talking about her. And so, when we were offered Rebirth, they kind of just sort of let us do what we wanted to do and stood back and supported what we wanted. And Greg and I had decided that we wanted to do an origin story, and these are the beats that we wanted, and these were the characters that we wanted to highlight, and this was the dynamic between the characters. And some of it was stuff that we had talked about over the years, and some of it was stuff that he was quite specific about, and some of it was stuff that I was quite specific about, and some of it was stuff that we negotiated. But it was really exciting to sort of finally get a chance to work on my favorite character and be able to do exactly what we wanted. Which, if we'd been given the chance 5 years earlier, we might have done something completely different. But because of the moment in time that this book was happening, I felt like we got to do exactly what was right for that moment at that time. And there were a number of scenes throughout that run that I absolutely love. Pretty much anything on the island is my favorite because I love the Amazons and the island, and everything about it makes me really happy. But there was one issue which was kind of Wonder Woman's reveal to the world issue that took place in a mall that I had designed to be Horton Plaza in San Diego, because this was meant to be a mall in San Diego and near the naval base. So it was like, oh, let's make it an open air mall. Let's do Horton Plaza. So it was kind of fun drawing an environment that I was really familiar with. I sort of mixed up the layout a little bit, but only a little bit because, Horton Plaza is a Escher painting itself. Right. But just sort of really being able to deep dive into her powers and her ability and how she reacts to things and how she is revealed to the world was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, you got any questions, Mark? Go for it.
So is there any character at DC that you haven't drawn that you'd still like to take a crack at?
There are a lot. Surprisingly, even though I'm sort of quite known for a couple of images of Nightwing, I've never really drawn a Nightwing book. He's been in a few issues that I've drawn. But Dick Grayson is a character that I have loved since I was a kid, when he was still Robin. I think he's such a sort of beautiful entry point for young readers and for female readers. And he's just a good guy, and I love him, and I'm hoping to get to draw him more over the next, I don't know, sometime in future. Catwoman is a character that I really love that I haven't really had a chance to play with at all. Batgirl is a character that I really love, and even though I got to draw Barbara in Birds of Prey, she wasn't really Batgirl, she was Oracle. And I love Oracle. I kind of do prefer Barbara as Oracle, despite the fact that Barbara is my Batgirl.
I do as well, for the record. I prefer her as Oracle. Yeah.
She I just feel like she has way more agency as Oracle than she ever has as Batgirl. So, Batgirl's a big character for me. There are loads, like I've been lucky in that most of the time I was at DC Comics, I was working on team books. So I got to sort of really find myself at one point or another playing with loads of different characters. Yeah. And I kind of really like that team dynamic. It makes for sparky storytelling, but it also makes for interesting day-to-day chore of doing the work, of getting to draw these sort of different faces and different body types and different body language. You don't get bored because, for 3 or 4 pages you get to draw someone and then you get to draw someone else. But I don't know. They're probably the 2 that stand out the most to me, but there are, or 3, sorry, but there are a lot of characters. Like I've learned more and more and more about more of the DC characters that lived outside of the Super Friends universe. over the last 20 years, and they've all got a bit of a place in my heart now.
What about the flip side? What about Marvel? What character at Marvel would you like a shot at?
There are probably about half a dozen characters at Marvel that really speak to me. Spider-Man is a pretty obvious one. I've long said if I were able to do like a one-off story with the right kind of writer, and being able to do the right kind of tone, if Gail and I could do a story with Spider-Man, that would be pretty fun. Just sort of something fun and exciting and a bit dangerous. That would be fun. There was a version of Spider-Woman where she was a bit of a bounty hunter or something in the 70s or the 80s. That was a version of Spider-Woman that really appealed to me. And I don't know that much about modern Spider-Woman, but that version kind of really hit a nerve with me. And I'd love to do a Spider-Woman version with Greg Rucka. That would be pretty fun.
Oh, man. I would read the heck out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We know people. Let's make some calls after that. Right?
Yeah, these people.
We'll send a memo. That'll be good.
And beyond that, I love Captain America. Steve Rogers. I've always sort of the good guys have always appealed to me, and by good guys I mean the sort of classically good guys. Have always sort of held a place in my heart. I don't know. There's a few, but I have yet to sort of be approached by Marvel for the right kind of project. I think there was sort of one project that was 100% interesting to me because of the writer and the material, and the timing was the one thing that didn't work. I just started Black Magic and I had to say no. And that was a bummer. But beyond that, I'm kind of not, even though I've never worked for Marvel, they're the only company I haven't worked for. I'm not in any desperate rush to leave DC because DC have been really good to me.
Same. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, right?
And you actually mentioned something I wanted to bring up. You mentioned Black Magic, which is your Image series with Greg Rucka. That's returning soon, right?
It is. Oh, my God. It's been a long time. Yeah, it is.
I literally just, for the record, I sold a copy of Volume 1 yesterday. So.
Oh, yay. Yeah. Yay, yeah. It's, I think our next issue is next month in July. Yeah. We've got 5 issues of this arc. They're almost all done. I've still got like the back end of the last issue to do. And when that is out, we will be halfway through our story. Oh, we're taking a long time. But
how would you, if you had to sum up that series to somebody who had never read it, what's your elevator pitch for that series?
Oh, okay. It's a occult noir story about demons and witches in a police procedural setting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Almost word for word how I pitch it.
Oh, yay.
Police procedural with witches, and people are like, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah. Awesome.
So speaking of black magic, what keeps you up at night?
Well, I do suffer from
besides insomnia
from time to time.
Yeah. I was going to say besides insomnia. I'm talking about the scary stuff, not the insomnia.
Oh, look, the fate of the world at the moment is pretty precarious. That'll do it. Do it.
You don't need a lot of imagination there, right?
Yeah, it's happening. Look outside your window. I'm not a particularly anxious person, but I've definitely been heightened into anxiety over the last, few months. I have my fingers crossed for next year. Because, with every year at the end of the year for the last few years, it's been like, this year's been a garbage fire. Let's bring on the next year. And the next year has been worse. So...
Yeah, one of the things that I get to look forward to is even though I don't like going, I really don't. I love going to San Diego because I get to see you, You know, I get to see you, and I get to see a bunch of people that I don't usually see. And I'm kind of happy, but sad that that's not happening this year.
That's exactly how I feel too. You know, it's a real chore to go to, and it's really expensive to go to. And, you know, for us, because we're coming from Australia, it's really expensive. But the upside is, as much as, you know, every time it rolls around, when we're there, we're just like, oh my God, I'm tired already.
All right.
And it's Tuesday, hasn't even started yet. And weren't we just here like a month ago? But as soon as it starts and as soon as I get to see everybody, it's like, oh my God, I love this place. I love this place. And I think what makes that show in particular such a highlight, and it's definitely the one that we continue to go to every year of the American shows, is because, like, nobody lives in San Diego. There are like, in the comic business, there are like half a dozen people that live in San Diego. But everybody else is on holiday, you know, in holiday mode, still convention mode, but still a little bit holiday mode. And we're all staying at the same half dozen hotels. So you do eventually just bump into everybody. Mm-hmm. And I kind of love that about that show. You know, it's just it's kind of cruisy. If you know how to navigate it and how to rest, you know, where to rest and how to rest at that show, then it's actually quite a lot of fun. And I'm relieved that we don't have to go this year, but I'm also going to miss seeing everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, what do you got for her?
I was just gonna say, you know how Facebook has the Facebook memories. This day 5 years ago. One just popped up recently. It was the last time I saw you was C2E2 5 years ago.
Oh wow!
It's a picture of the two of us in front of your table.
5 years ago already. Ooh.
Oh yeah, I know, right? It's
Yeah, we were. I was gonna steal you for the night because you were waiting to go to dinner, and your friends hadn't picked you up yet. Yeah. And I was like, just come with us. And then they showed up.
Yeah, that's right.
They showed up at the last minute, and we're like, ah.
Yeah, nuts. Well, I did actually have a very good night that night. That was with the guys that used to run the podcast. What was it called? Around Comics. Mm-hmm. That was run out of Chicago. I had been a guest on their show, and so I did actually have a great night with them that night. But I knew that I had such a great plan B if they hadn't shown up to be able to run away with you guys. That would have been a lot of fun.
Well, the next time you're here for New York Comic Con, we'll take you out to dinner.
Oh man, I know. I don't know that I'll do New York Comic Con again because I love New York, but I don't want to spend a week in New York and pay to be in New York for a week and have to go to the fucking Javits Center every day.
Yeah.
I goddamn hate the Javits Center.
How do you really feel about it?
Mark Wade told us once that New York Comic Con is everything he hates about conventions and everything he hates about New York all rolled into one.
All rolled into one. Yeah, it is god awful. And while it is great to see everybody, it just doesn't, you know, if I have to choose one big American show a year,
San Diego.
Which more often than not I have to, it has to be San Diego because, you know, at New York Comic Con, you can be half a block away from the Javits Center and have no idea that there are 150,000 nerds around the corner. Where you can be 10 miles away from the convention center in San Diego and you can't get away from the stormtroopers and the sea heroes. So, you know, if I'm going to pay all that money to go to New York and stay in New York, I want to experience New York. And not the Javits Center.
Let's make a pact that the next time you're actually in New York, you don't go to the show. You just come sign it at our shop and go out to dinner.
Yay!
Yeah, you have an open invite.
Yes, please.
But I was going to say, you heard it here first, folks. Nicola Scott hates stormtroopers. She hates them.
No, I love them. It makes me happy when I see them in the wild.
I love that.
All right. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate. Just chocolate. Anytime. Chocolate. Just give me chocolate. I just love chocolate.
See, when I do ice cream, if it's chocolate, it's got to be Rocky Road. You got to throw a little marshmallow on there for some reason.
Right. Yeah, look, I don't mind a chunk. I don't mind a chunk of something. Marshmallow in things doesn't excite me too much because it's just sugar. It's just, I don't have that much of a sweet tooth. I'm sort of more of a savory person.
I normally don't either.
Put cheese and salt on everything and I'm pretty happy.
Yes. Digital high five.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, when it comes to sweet things, I don't know. Just sugar, just being sugar, which to me what a marshmallow is. Like I tried to get into s'mores and I'm like, no, I much prefer to have a Tim Tam. If I'm going to have something that's sweet, I'm going to have a Tim Tam. Have you guys ever had a Tim Tam?
I have.
That's an Australian chocolate biscuit.
I was going to say, I'm going to tell you, I don't even know what that is.
I do.
It's an Australian chocolate cookie. We don't use the word cookie. We use the word biscuit. That is like 1,000,000 times better than anything produced in America. I'm sorry, but it just is.
You need to bring me one now.
You can take your Oreos and help yourself.
Yeah, we had a customer at one of our stores that's from Australia, and he goes back a couple times a year to see his family, and every once in a while he brings me a Tim Tam. So.
Oh right, so you know all about it. They're
so
really good,
he never shared with me.
He only brings one. He only brings
one packet or one Tim Tam.
Yeah, he eats them on the plane on the way over and has one left.
Yeah, he brings one packet, and the joke is, I meant to bring you more, but I ate them on the way here. So that's what he says.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
there are times that I've come to the States with like a suitcase full of Tim Tams, and they're just gone in like 2 days.
So what you're saying is that Franco and I are not cool enough for you to bring us Tim Tams. We have to wait for some random customer to bring us.
No, what I'm saying is that if I'm bringing them all the way from Australia to Chicago or to New York, they're just not going to make it the distance.
All right, well,
that's a fair point.
I will eat them on the way. It's just too far.
So besides Wonder Woman, is there a comic book series that you read regularly or that you have read, like maybe a standalone graphic novel that you just love? Like if you could take one comic book other than Wonder Woman to a desert island, what comic would it be?
Or to recommend to our readers at
there you go.
Ooh.
Besides everything Nicola Scott.
Oh, yes, please. Everything that I've ever done is amazing. There are 2 books that I can never quite forget because they both meant a lot to me. And I do go back and read them from time to time. And I don't really tend to repeat much of anything. You know, I don't repeat a lot of TV. I don't repeat a lot of films. But these are 2 books. One of them is Why the Last Man, because I just think it's a really beautiful, fun adventure story with a, really horrifying beginning.
Yeah.
And the other is Matt Wagner and Amy Reeder did a Madame Xanadu series.
Xanadu. We just had
Amy,
like
10 years ago or something?
Yeah. We just before the shutdown happened here, Amy was the last person we had in the store because she's doing the Amethyst miniseries, and we had several people bring Madame Xanadu issues, which made her really happy. But yeah, I remember that series. I love that series.
Amy's art in that series is so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it's such a sort of lovely telling of Madame Xanadu's story that she was a character that I hadn't ever really considered before, despite the fact that she sort of represents a whole bunch of, sort of witchy things that I'm into. I just hadn't really gravitated towards Madame Xanadu at all until that series. And it was just because of what Matt was doing and what Amy was doing that just, it's just so beautiful. And so, yeah, I go back and I read both of those from time to time. But otherwise, I don't know, there's all kinds of great stuff. I really love Greg and JH's version of Batwoman, when they did Batwoman together. That was
oh my god, when that book came out, I would just stare at the pages. Like it took me a while to read it because I would go through and just look at the pages. It was just stunning to look at. And then the story was so good too, but it was just stunning.
So in San Francisco, have you been to Isotope, the comic book shop in San Francisco?
Isotope. I don't know. I don't think so. I've only been to San Francisco once.
So the owner, his name is James Syme, and he wears 3-piece suits to work all the time. He actually has a suit completely designed by J.H. Williams.
Oh, really? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sorry, just thought I'd throw that out.
I love that.
Oh,
that name is really familiar. Is he at San Diego every year?
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
Oh, in that case, I've probably met him and I can't remember.
It's possible. So basically, what I need you to do is, can you design a suit for Franco?
Yeah.
That he can wear to conventions.
Absolutely. Yeah, Franco, you're pretty bold with your suit choices.
That's true.
I think I like to dress to impress, or at least have people shocked when they see the colors.
Dress to have fun.
Yeah, that's what I get. Yeah, you go to these conventions, and that's my philosophy. People look at me, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I like these colors, and it's fun to dress up.
Yeah, look, I've got clothes that I almost only wear to conventions that aren't my sort of day-to-day clothes, and they're just a little bit more heightened than usual me clothes. Because you're in the most colorful, overstimulating place in the world. You might as well contribute.
Right.
That's a good philosophy. So,
over the course of these videos that Mark and I have been doing with creators and business people as well, one of my favorite questions to ask has developed over time, and it's this one. What teach us something that we don't know. In the next couple of minutes, teach us something that we don't know.
Jesus, no pressure.
Yeah, no, none whatsoever.
Teach us something you don't know.
Well, especially because we know almost everything.
We know a lot.
Yeah, I know.
We know a lot.
I know everything.
Not bragging,
or
but
I don't know if we know a lot or if we're know-it-alls. One of the two. It's going to work. So.
Smart ass or wise ass. I can never figure out which one.
My grandmother always, she would make comments and people would call her a smart ass, and her response was always better a smart ass than a dumbass.
100%, Mom. Yes, 100%. Yeah. Oh. What can I teach you? What can I teach you?
Teach us something Australian.
Yeah, I was going to say, I need to teach you something Australian.
Yeah.
Well, I know everybody thinks that everything here will kill you, whether it be flora or fauna.
I actually cracked that joke earlier. Yeah.
I've been invited to Australia a number of times, and that's what I cite as my reason for not being able to go, besides the 300-hour plane ride that it takes to get there.
And for the record, I'm always telling him that he should go. He should just go.
You should absolutely go.
Yeah,
but I will tell you that most of the people that die from our local flora and fauna are tourists because they're
stupid.
They're stupid.
Yeah.
No, see, we already knew that though.
It's because you look, it's not only our flora and fauna. Our ocean is trying to kill you. We have incredibly strong riptides, but it really is. I'm a city person. I grew up in Sydney and in the inner city of Sydney. And while we have beaches, we grow up just knowing sensible beach and water rules and such, so that we're not in danger. And everything that's going to kill you is generally in the outback. I don't think I've seen ever in my life any of the things here that can kill you. I might have seen a red widow spider or something, but I don't think so. There's a lot here that will kill you, but you really have to be in the bush, which is our version of a forest, for anything to really come at you. But that tends to be because that tends to be why the tourists die, because they'll be in the bush and they'll just decide, I'm going to go swimming in this lagoon, but they're going to get eaten by a crocodile. Or I'm going to get drunk and go swimming on the beach, but they'll get ripped out to sea. Or I'm going to jump off this, whatever it is, into a rock pool, and they're going to, break their neck on something. So
basically, you work for the tourist board of Australia with that with
One.
an endorsement.
It's a good
Right?
tip. Please come to Australia and die.
Come to Australia, but don't do extreme sports here. Because everything will kill you. If you're going to do extreme sports, go to New Zealand, because New Zealand's whole tourist industry is built around hobbits and extreme sports.
There you go.
So
I will trade.
Come
you
here and be sensible. Enjoy our beautiful food.
It's true.
And weather.
So I'll trade you. I'll tell you something that maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
So most people assume that sharks are terrible and eat people on a pretty much constant basis. Every year, more people die from vending machines falling over on them than shark attacks.
Because people are stupid.
Because
people are stupid.
And interestingly enough, 90% of those vending machines are in Australia.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
they're coming to get you.
Only one shark has died from a vending machine falling over on it.
Oh, poor shark.
Oh, poor.
I hope it was that 400-year-old shark that was really trying to die anyway.
Oh.
Did you ever see that? This really ancient shark?
Yeah.
That had no teeth left. And it was
no teeth and
poor old lady.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that tells you how badass they are. She's still alive, that one.
I know. She's still going. She's swimming around with her John Williams thing. Yeah.
So, do you have big plans, or can you tell us what you have planned between Black Magic or after Black Magic?
I am currently drawing a single issue of a very exciting thing. That it definitely hasn't been announced, so I know I can't talk about it, but it is one of the big characters at DC Comics on one of their very big titles.
Can we guess?
Knock yourself out, but I'm not going to let you know if you've guessed.
Oh yeah, no, but we want to. I'm going to throw it out there. Is it Tiny Titans? I know that they're looking for a new creative team on those guys, and I think you and Greg Greco would be awesome.
Why would they get a new creative team? Absolutely not.
I'm just kidding. I just like nothing with Franco. It's good.
Yeah.
So.
You don't want Greg Greco writing Tiny Titans. They'll be very scarred tiny people.
Yeah, but how often do I get to mess with him with you on the line? So
I know, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Franco.
I'm not.
Yeah, so I've got an issue of that, and we're currently developing for a thing that's happening later in the year at DC that I have no idea what information is public about, so I won't say anything. But there's a thing that's happening later in the year that I'm going to be involved in a story on with one of my favorite characters. So
nice.
Yeah, so the rest of the year is actually looking pretty dense for me. I haven't had a lot come out except for, sort of little bits and pieces.
And I saw your Green Lantern 80th anniversary cover was beautiful. That was pretty fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I was hoping I would get to do one for The Flash, but they kind of didn't commission one for The Flash. I just did a 40s Jay Garrick.
I saw that.
And, that was a lot of fun, but it did mean that once I did the Green Lantern one, everyone was like, where's the Flash one? And I'm like, they didn't ask for one.
They dropped the ball.
If I get some spare time, I might do one, but who has spare time?
Right. Well, I was going to ask you to do a pinup for my create-our-own characters, but you don't have time, so I'm not even going to ask.
I don't have time right now because I am under like a hardcore deadline that I've not been under a hardcore deadline for a while, and so it's alarming to finally find myself there again. But I'll do something for you. Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to pay you, so
That's all right.
Oh, cool. I think that's all we had. Do you have any questions for us?
Have any questions for us? Yeah.
Oh, how are you guys surviving? Are you guys okay? How is the store doing? How is everybody? That's kind of the only things that really press my mind at the moment is how is everybody going?
So the store is both the stores are closed to the public right now. We're doing like curbside pickup. We had to diversify pretty quickly. We launched a new website with a new web store. We put up a Patreon. We put up a thread list. I do the thing that has really kept us going though is on Facebook. I do a daily live sale where I sell back issues and graphic novels and hardcovers and toys and stuff. And that has so not only has it kept it alive, but I think when things get to whatever the new normal is, I think the stores will actually come out stronger than we went in. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
yeah.
I mean, don't get me
Fingers
wrong.
crossed.
Every day is a new terror, so who knows?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, and then so I think in all this, my routine hasn't changed. I still work 7 days a week. I think I've taken 2 days off early on, but it's the live sales take a lot of work. So we're working like twice as hard, but not a complaint at all. Both stores are still around.
Yeah.
So,
I miss your tweets. Every now and then you used to tweet out a story, a lovely, happy, observational story, and I miss them.
Oh, I just realized today that the Twitter is no longer like for some reason it was disconnected from the Instagram that I was doing. So I'll make sure that I'll rectify that situation.
Oh yay! That always made me happy to read your beautiful stories.
Wow, that's a really nice compliment. Thank you.
And I've been teaching. We've been doing distance learning for my students, so that's been occupying a lot of time.
How has that been going?
Horribly.
Yeah. I know a few teachers and a few students.
Yeah, it's just taking a lot more time than I thought it would, because you think about this abstractly when it happens, and then you're like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then when you're into it, you're like, oh man, this is just like taking up so much time, and
right.
But it's coming to the end of the year. Comic wise, we have Arkham Maniacs coming out from DC Comics with art, and I've written 2 new projects for them that one I might possibly be doing the artwork on, and the other one is written and it's got a lot of cool artists attached to it, and neither one of them has been announced, so I can't say a thing about either one.
Of course.
But I'm very excited by both of them, by all 3 of them, and then I have some creator-owned stuff that I've been working on. So always busy, stuck in a house, but always busy.
Yeah, I feel very grateful that, for us, we're stuck in a house too. But like a year and a half ago, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
My husband and I had spent 13 years living in an apartment. And your
husband's he's like 8 feet tall too. Your husband.
He's pretty big. He's 6'5". Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the last.
There's not many people when I walk into a room. There's not many people that I look up to. Because I'm like 6'4". So like hey.
You're a big chap.
Yeah.
Yes, he's an enormous bear of a person. And for the last sort of 3 or 4 years that we were living there, he was also working from home full time. And we didn't kill each other, so that's a good sign.
A stronger marriage in the end.
Yeah, but feeling very, very grateful that we are not there during all of this. That we're actually living in a house, and we have a garden, and we have some space. We moved out of the city. And up to.
Wait, you told me everything outside of the city kills you. Why did you do that?
Well, I mean, out of sort of residential areas.
Right.
We're closer to the things that will kill you.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are
to the middle of the
definitely
outback,
more
Franco.
spiders in our life. And those spiders are really scary looking, but the scariest looking spiders aren't the ones that can hurt you. They just look horrifying.
Oh, great.
So, yeah. So that's always a little, that was something I had to sort of gird my loins for, is Spider Town.
Awesome. Anything else? You have any other questions or anything? Or
No, I'm good. It's just been so nice to chat to you guys.
Yeah, we're so happy that you came along.
I have one more question. This one's super serious. Who wins in a fight?
Ooh.
Franco on a horse or a penguin on a riding lawnmower?
Oh, that's easy.
Well, Franco on a horse has quite a lot of a height advantage over a penguin on a lawnmower.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I've never ridden a horse ever. And
yeah.
No.
Advantage, penguin.
Penguin. And if penguin has any mechanical skill whatsoever, I'm done for it. It's over.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Do they have any weapons besides the horse and the lawnmower?
He's got a lawnmower. What are you talking about?
All right, so I think we can all agree that the Penguin wins. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
That's been
My money. I would bet on the Penguin if I was in the fight. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much for your time. We really, really
That's
appreciate it. It's
pleasure,
always
guys.
lovely to talk to you. So
it's so nice to chat to you guys, to know that the world is still happening out
It's
there.
out here somewhere. It's out here.
And that you guys are still there. You know, Franco, I get to see you every year, and it's always a bit of a highlight to be able to see you at the show. Mark, I haven't seen you for years.
Yeah,
you know, I miss
It's
you.
been 5. You missed me,
It'd
but
be really
your aim
nice
is
to see you
improving.
again. Oh, good. Yeah, my eyesight is terrible, so my aim is usually off. But
well, you know, the thing about San Diego, and Mark has been there. I think you weren't there last year, but he's been there. It's just so massive that you miss so many people as well. We happen to be with the same company, so we wind up seeing each other at some point,
right?
Which is always fun. But
well, Mark, the next time you're there, make sure you let me know that you're there so I can come find you.
I will. Well, and I'm still trying to convince him to go to Australia, and I told him if he does, I'll go with him.
Yeah, you should come. You should come. Like, you can, if you get like a Economy X or whatever it is, the sort of halfway point between economy and business, you get a pretty decent sized seat. It's like what business used to be 20 years ago.
Neither one of us would be able to last that long on a flight. Like,
I was going to say,
is about my limit.
Full disclosure, every time I see you invite me, and I've actually been invited out by different shows. It's always, the school schedule is always dicey for me, which is why I can't manage so much time away. But every time you invite me, I turn you down.
You do.
because I know it's not you personally. You have to understand that. So,
but if you can't
the trick.
Get him to go, no one can.
Oh well, shit. All right. There is a trick. The trick to doing those really long flights, which I learned after I turned 40, because I used to have like enough adrenaline to just keep me going, and I wouldn't sleep on the flight, and I'd hit the ground running and I'd be fine. But as soon as I got too old, it was like, oh, okay, I need to work out how to do this. And this is how, for guys like yourselves that can't do the long flights, you have to find a really good hardcore sleeping pill, and you take the sleeping pill once you've watched a movie. You take off, you have your meal, you watch a movie, you take a sleeping pill, you go to sleep, you wake up, you have breakfast, you watch a movie, you land. That's it.
See, that was teaching us something we didn't know.
It's true.
There you go.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm 20 minutes behind the question.
As long as we get there.
To those long haul flights is a good sleeping pill, 2 movies, 2 airplane meals, and you land. It's great.
That's awesome.
And then you're in another country on the other side of the world.
That's true.
In the future.
Well, you're in the future. You have to come to the past to be with us. So
I do.
Okay.
Literally, I land after I've taken off.
Yeah, that's weird.
Wow, that's crazy. Thank you so much for all your time. You're awesome.
That's my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Look for everything Nicola Scott, and especially Black Magic coming out again, and we look forward to it.
July, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yay!
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.
Bye.